Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today, I thought it would be an interesting idea to look at the history of all competitive doubles formats on Smogon and basically rank the mythicals across all generations, right? So, especially as someone who originally played with VGC first before I touched DOU, right? Mythicals are very interesting. They're one of the key things that distincts or differentiates DOU from VGC, right? Because mythicals are never legal in VGC, and now this is honestly, it seems like it wouldn't be that significant, right? Because there's not that many mythicals. There's 2 to 4 per generation usually, right? Um, and how good could they really be? But in practice, it's actually a really very large difference to have these mons legal, and that's for a couple of reasons, right? So these Pokemon usually have some kind of signature move or mechanic or ability, um, or trait that makes them very unique in what they do, right? So these mons not existing in VGC has an impact, right? So for example, take Volcanion, right? It's the only and water type in the game, and so the absence of that typing makes a very big difference, between DOU formats and VGC formats, because Volcanion is a very influential Pokemon. And in addition, a lot of mythicals got access to moves that are very rare, right? Um, and that's also made them at times very powerful compared to the rest of Mons. So yeah, they're very powerful Pokemon, as you might imagine. Um, and so I thought it'd be interesting to kind of just rank them all time, right? There's kind of a more distinct answer per generation, which ones are good, which ones are bad. But over time, right, some of them have fallen off, some of them have gotten better. Um, and I think it's kind of an interesting question, especially when you consider the ones that have been really good for a long time. Um, so yeah, so just a brief overview of just what it looks like in SB right now. This is actually a pretty interesting generation because I was just looking at this. There are actually no mythicals above tier 4 right now. Diancie, Mew, and Volcanion are all at 4. They're all arguably a little lower, a little higher. This is actually pretty interesting because it's honestly a metagame that has less impact from mythical Pokemon, which I just thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, so today, I kind of came up with a preliminary ranking of mythicals that I thought we'd kind of stick to generally. Um, but yeah, I'm joined by Shister and Big Warrior, and we're just kind of going to go through this ranking that I came up with. Um, but before we're gonna start from the bottom. However, before we start from the bottom, I kind of just want to discuss 5 mythicals that are kind of just so broken that they don't even really warrant being discussed as part of the main video here, right? So the first of these is Arceus, right? So this Pokemon is probably actually the strongest Pokemon in the entire game, at least when you consider all its forms, and all the things it gets access to. This is one of the best Pokemon in Dubers every generation, whether it's the normal one, just clicking SD extreme speed, or just like an interesting typing like fairy or
or Calm
ground
Mind
you see sometimes.
Arceus, or Tailwind, or Trick Room, or Whiff Snarl, or Iron Press. It does everything.
Yeah, it literally does everything. This Pokemon is just kind of in a
It's
league of
very
its own.
messy
S plus is
things.
just going to
And
be mons that are this is just going to be the 5 Pokemon I'm about to talk about here. They're banned in all or almost all of the formats they're legal in. And RCS is even a step level even above the others here. So that's the first one. The second one is Magearna. Now, this Pokemon is probably has the most double specifically broken ability in the entire game. Um,
it's a
if
fun
you don't
little
know what it
guy.
is, it's Soul Heart. It's Beast Boost or Moxie or whatever for your special attack stat. Except it happens when literally anything on the field dies. So this Pokemon uh, just gets boosts literally practically every turn to its special attack stat. It
And,
also gets Trick Room and has the best typing in the game. This Pokemon's not okay. Um,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
also
I, I
it's not just limited to Magearna targeting them. Like it could be from them dying from explosions, sandstorm ship, literally anything. And it'll get a
my
boost.
favorite gimmick: Final Gambit Annihilate plus Magearna. You die, and then you die again because I get a boost for my Pokemon dying for no
Yeah, it's pretty
reason.
nasty plot. yeah, there's like a whole like there's like a whole like new level of like bullshit you could come up with Magirna because the ability is just that strong. There's like almost infinite ways to abuse it. Um, and so it was banned like very, very early on after it came out in Gen 7, like probably within like I think like a couple days, maybe even a couple hours after it dropped. And yeah, okay, so then the third one we're gonna talk about is Jirachi. Now this is like an interesting case, right? Because Jirachi's actually below DOU and sees like no competitive usage in SV. Um, and it's not really a Pokemon that would be like obviously broken. If you don't come from like if you haven't like never played DOU before, right? But what makes Jirachi like so broken in DOU is that in generations 5 through 8 it has access to the move Follow Me, right? So Follow Me like the best form of redirection in the entire game. Um, and because you can't really bypass it except if you have like one of the special Gen 8 abilities, but I digress. Um, but Follow Me on a Pokemon that is a Steel type, for one, Steel Psychic, one of the best typings in the game, and has 600 base stat total is not okay. This
With
Pokemon
no
was
base
actually
shooter.
legal for a long time in current Gen 6. So I actually found like a couple replays where Jirachi was legal, and they're not necessarily like best instance of like this Pokemon being broken, right? But I just thought it'd be kind of interesting um, to show like this Pokemon can fit on like a, a lot of things. Like um, this Pokemon's actually legal with Follow Me and Napdex. It's only legal because the power level is like way higher, and even then it's like arguably broken. Um, but this Pokemon can do anything, right? It has Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock's like a pretty important move in DOU because there is like a fair amount of switching depending on the generation, right? Like especially like Gen 6 and 7, um, and to like maybe a slightly lesser degree 8 and 5, although Rocks is good in every generation. It gets Stealth Rock, and so that's pretty important because the pace is like slower in some of these formats. Um, it also gets stuff like Encore. It gets Trick Room. It's a great Trick Room setter because it just lives things. Um, it also has the funny Iron Head flinch thing. It also has like a myriad of like supporting moves, like Icy Wind. I think has seen use at some points. But really, it's just Follow Me.
In
With
Natex, it gets to use Life Dew as well to heal itself and its ally to be even more annoying.
Yeah.
yeah, and it could do that in Gen 8 too if it was legal, but thankfully it's not. Um, but yeah, it's a really powerful Pokemon when it's legal. This is kind of a funny replay because it's on both teams. And yeah,
It
it's just a
lived
really valuable
Eruption.
typing compared with like
It lived Helping Hand Eruption.
From a Heatran.
It lived
balanced
Helping Hand
Pokemon.
Eruption. Can you understand why maybe it's not okay to let all your attacks go into this Pokemon?
And this thing
Literally.
was quite good in Natdex too, being
Yeah.
one of the main reasons I got axed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many things you can like pair it with in that decks. Like you could pair it next to Feeny, for funny stuff. It is the strongest dedicated redirector by a lot compared to anything we've ever had. Like Ogerpon is like pretty powerful. If you're familiar with like SV and like those guys, right? But it's
It doesn't
not
hold a
as
candle.
that's like a mon that has more of an offensive angle. And defensively it can't even like really like it's not even close to as powerful as like Jirachi is. Oh, this is a funny replay. Earthquake locked against Latios. You'd love to see it. Um, but yeah, that's Jirachi for you. Just an incredible bulky Pokemon with access to Follow Me. Um, okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is Melmetal. Now, this Pokemon is like one of the best Mons in OU in like Gen 8, and it's like obviously like very good there. Um, but it's not banned. But in DOU, right, this Pokemon is very slow. And like you can use like Trick Room with it, and now that's like one buff it has going for it. But the main thing here is this Pokemon has like the most positive like damage trades like of any Pokemon and like that has ever really been legal in DOU. Like it was legal, I believe like at the beginning of Gen 8, for the first like 5 or so months, and it was like okay when like Dynamax was around, is what I've heard, because there was like a whole like mechanic that like made it like not as dominant. But as soon as Dynamax went away, this Pokemon was like really stupid because this Pokemon is a Steel type, right? Weak to Fire. Oh, it can trade 1-for-1 with like Charizard and Sun with like solar power boosted Heat Wave because this mod is so bulky with an Assault Vest that it can basically live like anything like one time, and it has like Iron Fist plus like all the punching like coverage moves, right? So you could like put Thunder Punch on the Charizard and knock it out after living like a Sun boosted Heat Wave. So that's kind of like the infamous example of like this Pokemon's like damage trading potential, and it's just too powerful of a stat stick. Like there's nothing can trade better than it. It's often trading like 2 or 3-for-1. Um, and yeah, it's just not okay.
And you can't wall it in doubles. Like you can wall it with a Toxapex most of the time in OU. You're not doing that in doubles. That mon is
Yeah.
like defensive walls are just not good enough. There's no way to stop this mon's roll.
Then in
Yeah.
SV, now it would have a clear amulet.
Oh god, this
But
Pokemon is very. I mean, I don't even want to talk about it. When it was like legal
also,
at the start of Nat decks,
flinch it.
like we also had like Swagger Tapu Fini legal, so the like the best team for like a good week before like we banned both Swagger and Melmetal was like you would Swagger your Melmetal and Misty Terrain, give it like a +2 attack boost, and it couldn't be confused, and it would just like sweep. So yeah, this is the Pokemon that have like good damage trades like this, so you can like abuse them in many ways. And Melmetal's just like too powerful. Okay, so the last one of the Mons I'm going to include in S plus because it's not really like legal in any like of the main DOU formats is Marshadow. Now this Pokemon is like towards the bottom here because while it was like banned in SM and banned in SS, in Gen 7, like it was tested like many times. It's like banned. I don't think I think it survived the first suspect, then got banned the second time, and then got suspected down, but it stayed in Dubers. This Pokemon is just it has the best offensive combination in the game in Ghost and Fighting, right? Like nothing really switches into this. One thing that used to be done with this guy was also with Swagger Fini. He would, or just like Swagger in general, you Swagger the opponent, right? Your opponent gets a +2 attack boost and they're confused. But then your Mars Shadow uses Spectral Thief, copies their +2 attack boost, and then knocks them out with the move, right? So this Pokemon just has like a very overwhelming offensive power. It's not you can't really switch around this Pokemon. It just does way too much damage. Um, However, it's like not quite as broken as the others because it's not as it's pretty frail. It's not like super frail, but it can like it often struggles to like really take like more than like 1 or maybe 2 KOs. But like it's basically impossible to like play around this Pokemon defensively. And then the ability to just like steal stat boosts with Spectral Thief is like also very powerful. Um, that's like a unique effect. Um, yeah, anything to add on this one?
It does some very funny utility moves in its kit as well, such as Will-O-Wisp and Snatch, and a couple of other moves that help give it some set diversity if it really wants to. Because 90-90-80 is like not squishy. It can run a little bulkier and start doing utility things if you give it room to do so. But give it a life orb, the close combat and poltergeist, everything dies.
Yeah. Um, it's also legal in Natdex. And the general
Admission Shadow Sneak too.
consensus is like it's not like that broken in Natdex, but it's definitely like a strong Pokemon there. Um, that kind of can just still like Oko everything. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't
I,
rate it on
I
like quite the same level as like the top four here because these first four are like all like really like uncompetitive in like ways that they're just like too much, right? Like Magearna has a stupid gimmick. Jirachi just has follow me when a Pokemon that like has like stats that it should not have follow me. Melmetal is just way too bulky. Marshadow is like more of like your standard like kind of like okay, it's just a little too strong offensively. It just like kills things, right? And to me that's like a little bit like of a lesser broken than like the first four, and then Arceus is just its own thing, right? Okay. So now we've gone through the
think
first
the
five.
best way to describe Marshadow is a physical Flutterman. Is about where his power lies.
Yeah, I
Same
was gonna
same
say
same
that
concept.
Yeah, it's the same like kind of broken, right? Like it's just too powerful offensively. And those are usually the mons that are like more borderline in terms of like whether they're broken or not. Doubles formats
You think we're
because
at the
there's ways
top
to play
five?
around stuff.
Ed?
Okay, but that's the first five. I wanted to get them out of the way first because everything else is like a little more interesting. Um, to me at least because these Pokemon are just like not actually like present in competitive play really. So okay, so now we're gonna start from the bottom and work our way up. Um, this is really the beginning of the actual video, so I'm gonna leave a timestamp for this. So at the very bottom, well, first one we have to
Babies,
have one for like
babies
the
tier,
ones that are not actually mythical. Bad.
babies tier,
Beltan, Fion. Um,
baby
honestly,
Hoopa,
yeah, Baby
baby
Hoopa, yeah.
Hoopa goes here.
Yeah, it
This
doesn't
is
have any
not
like
ever gonna
boost
get
over like
used.
the big Hoopa. Um, but yeah, okay. So these Pokemon are just they don't have stats. They're not really here. You never see them at all. Okay,
And my
so
my boy.
at the very bottom, I'm putting Zarude. This Pokemon, Grass Dark is a very terrible typing. It's just not good. Um, and it does have like kind of an interesting signature move and has some like set diversity and it's like kind of fast, but it just doesn't have anything. Like you never see this Pokemon at all. Um, how I'm kind of like doing this is like I'm going off of like, okay, how good will this Pokemon like overall across like all doubles formats, right? This Pokemon's been legal for 2, and I've never seen it used in anything, really at all. Um, so there's going to be like some stuff that's kind of interesting here, especially when we come across Mons that are like, um, they were like really, really powerful in one generation and not as good in others. But this Pokemon's just not good in any of them. And kind of in the same boat, we have Melameta. This Pokemon its gimmick holds it
I
back, right?
can
So whenever it uses its
I
signature
can
move,
think of
Relic Song,
one.
which is actually pretty interesting because it's a spread move, right? It has a 10% chance to put either Pokemon to sleep. It has Serene Grace, so it effectively has a 20% chance to put each opponent to sleep. But it doesn't want to actually click Relic Song because then it changes to its other form, which is like, for most purposes, worse because it changes its entire build, gives it kind of a worse typing. Um, and it is fast, but it's not good. This Pokemon didn't change forms. It might be in the C tier, but the fact that its like best move forces it to like change its entire gimmick is very very bad for it.
I
It
want
changes its stat
to
spread
take
too. Like you can't really commit to like running its. You can't run a special set without. You can't run a special set with its
oh
best move,
boy.
because then it'll like change into a physical attacker every time you use it. Um, so yeah, this Pokemon is just a mess. Um,
I've seen it used exactly once, and I've put that replay in the voice text here. I have seen this Pokemon used once in National Dex, where it did something very, very funny
oh yeah,
with a
I've
certain
seen it use like
mechanic that
Z
is.
Celebrate because it gets like an Omni boost. But yeah, it's to be fair, this is why it is higher than Zarude. Like I've never seen Zarude use it all. At least I've seen like Meloetta like once or twice. Alluring voice. Oh my goodness. Oh,
Oh,
and then
this
it got
was a
dragon tailed out.
mess.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh,
Using a luring voice for this.
Oh my god. Okay, that's enough of that. Um, okay, what did I have right after this? Um, oh, after this I had like
Was
normal
it
Deoxys.
Celebi?
This Pokemon's like not bad. It's like definitely better than these other two. But it's literally strictly worse than Deoxys Attack, except for SV, right? Where Deoxys Attack is banned. But even then, it's not really used much because its stats are just like not quite enough to carry it. Um, Expanding Force Clicker is kind of nice, but like it's not. It's just not as powerful as Deoxys Attack was with it, and it kind of just gets walled and cries itself to sleep. Um, Not much to say about
It
this
is
guy.
outclassed by Iron Crown and the Crozma and Hoopa in the same role.
Yeah, that too. Um,
You also had Deoxys Defense here, but that's not actually on this list.
yeah, I didn't actually add all the Deoxys sprites because I need to add this Deoxys Speed one, but I'll get to that later. I also put Deoxys Defense down here, but it's not. Again, it's like never seen any use. Is what I can from what I can tell, except from like ADV before it was banned, but I wasn't around to see that, so I'm not even going to count it
It, it's
because
seen it's seen a little bit of use in modern gen DUU as a trick room setter because it's got some nice roll compression and it's bulky enough to function there. But like that's a UU tier.
yeah,
Like I think that speaks for itself as to why it's down here.
yeah. Another thing I should clarify is like in a lot of the early gens, right? A lot of these mythicals are banned just because like the power level is like really low. Like ADV, like all the Deoxys are banned, like Mew is banned. But I'm not like really like counting that as much because the power level is just way lower, and I don't think it's like a super accurate description of how like powerful a mon actually is, especially for like gens 3, 4, and 5, because those tiers do exist, but they are very Mickey. Less so Gen 5, but especially 3 and 4, like very Mickey, and like I don't really consider them to be like as real as some of like the later generations. So I'm not weighting those as highly, although I am taking them into account. Um, okay, so the last one in D is Petulant. This Pokemon is just uncompetitive and stupid. It's the Gen 9 mythical. It has a couple interesting traits, like it can set up and it can click like some really annoying buttons and make all your Pokemon poisoned and confused, but it's not really that good. Like I've used it a couple times, a couple other people have used it as well, but it's not really that good. It's just stupid and has a really annoying gimmick, and that's all we're gonna say about it. Okay, so that's all for D. Like these Pokemon are just like kind of bad. They don't really have any like niche, really anywhere. Um, we're gonna move up to C. The first one we have in C is Celebi. Um, this Pokemon is like not good by any means. It's kind of like outclassed by like Mew as a grass type or like as a psychic type. And then the grass type doesn't really add much either. Um, however, it is
It's
a
got
pretty solid
one.
Pokemon in like ADV DOU, and although I'm like not really rating like Gen 3 and 4 as highly, it is still like a niche in some format, which is more than you can say for the Pokemon in D tier. So in ADV, it has like Calm Mind sets with like Recover, and Recover is like really powerful in ADV because it's like 32 PP, um, which doesn't really come up a lot, but it's just like very difficult to remove. So it gets like a lot of opportunities to just like come in and click Calm Mind, especially in the new metagame where Explosion's banned. So this Pokemon it's usable in that generation. It's definitely like tier 3 or tier 2, is what I've heard. I think recently from people. Um,
I'd have it in
so it's
tier
like
two
not
because
bad.
it also does screen stuff in that gen.
Yeah. So it's one of the better mods on that tier, and I think that warrants C. But it doesn't really see any usage above that. Um, and like it does have some unique role compression. Like it has like Perish Song, but Perish Trap's like not really that good in DOU. So like although it's one of the highest BST mods with that move, it doesn't really save it at all. Okay, and
Okay,
then I think
Mewtwo
around
turn.
here is where I had like Manaphy and like Victini. We're gonna talk about Manaphy first. This Pokemon is like not bad, but it kind of just gets outclassed by like other water types in most DOU formats. But it does have like Tail Glow options, and you can like set it up next to things. And I've definitely seen it like in some of the old gens, and it's seen like some usage in like SV to like pretty good success, right, with like Terra and stuff. But it's been really like off and on. Um, and it's just like not a super consistent one, but it's definitely like a step up from like Celebi. Um, Tail Glow plus Terra and SB is really nice. And you can click Surf next to Ogerpon Wellspring is usually like the most common way to run it. I've definitely ESM has run it like multiple times. Let me find like just for a brief demonstration of what this Pokemon does. Because it is a pretty interesting mod. We're just gonna skip towards the end of this game. Yeah, like a Terra's it clicks Tail Glow. And you can notice your like double redirection, right? Especially in like the more recent generations where you have more options to like support this mod, I think it actually gets better than like the older gens because setup mods in those gens kind of just get like out damage traded and you can't really support them as well because your utility options are not as good. Um, but it's definitely like a respectable mod. Um, but the thing is, it's just like not used nearly enough to be on like a level like the rest of these Pokemon are. Um, but it's not bad. I'm not like trying to be like talk too down on this one, but it's just kind of like outclassed generally by things. Let's see. Yeah, I think it just wins this game. Actually, our next Pokemon is like Hoopa Unbound. I'm actually going to put it below Manaphy because I think Manaphy is just better. Um, Generally, like Hoopa has like a lot of damage output, and you can like use it in a variety of generations. Like it has really good offensive stats, um, but its low like physical defense and like mediocre speed stat really hold it back um, from doing much. In SV, it can click Expanding Force as well, and it does see some fringe usage, but I don't think it's like generally a very powerful Pokemon. Um, it can also click like maybe like Scarf or something, and it can get mileage in a lot of like the generations where it's legal, like 6, 7, and 9. But I don't think it's like I personally would respect Manaphy like a little bit more. Um,
Like
they're very close
being
though.
weak to U-turn is so massive. Like any U-turn from anything kills it. Like you can U-turn with a timid Pelipper and do like 80.
Yeah,
It's got good special bulk. It's like at that mid range of speed where it's like it's okay in Tailwind, but you can't really use it in Trick Room.
yeah,
And like it's just hard to position. Like it can break holes, but it's difficult to get those positions to break those holes.
yeah. I
This is
agree.
a Pokemon that you run if you're trying to call out a certain type of passiveness from like an opponent's scout, especially in SV where it can steamroll things with expanding force. Like it will kill things. It will definitely take KOs if you get it into the right matchup. Its typing is just atrocious though defensively. And it's not even just the U-turn thing, it's that there is no upside to the typing. It is just a psychic immunity and it has no resistances whatsoever. So it's very hard to justify this Pokemon on a team with a defensive role. But oh boy,
Yeah,
does it hit hard, and oh boy, can it win games if you find the right matchup for it.
I'm gonna add a couple sprites here because I'm realizing I should add them now. Um, but yeah, I completely agree. Let's see. It has like some usage, but it's just like pretty mid. But like that's kind of an interesting thing, right? Because we're in the C tier, and already these Pokemon are like you can use them. They're just like not like super powerful.
I would
So I
say
think I
that
also need to
C
grab
tier is the
Deoxys.
most unexplored mons on this list, especially with some of the other mons that you had in the C tier that you showed me. Like Manaphy is by no means bad in multiple generations. Like it has, like it's just a bulky water type with a good move pool. It can certainly do things in like 6 and 7, even if it really wants to. It's just a matter of finding the right build. It's not
Yeah,
as strong as like a Tapu Fini or a Volcanion, but sometimes maybe I want to try a different water type, and it'll fit that role because it just has stats.
yeah. All right, I'm also gonna put regular Shaman like really down here. I think it's like slightly better than Zerud, but I don't think it's very good. Not much to say on this guy; it just doesn't really see usage. Um,
Hey,
okay,
look, I died of Icy Wind.
yep. Okay, so like right next to like Manaphy, like we have Victini. This Pokemon's like very similar in that like it's not bad, but it's kind of just like outclassed by other fire types. It does have like funny like Scarf Final Gambit stuff. It can do that. It has like a really powerful like fire type stab move and V create, which kind of just takes KOs if you want it to. But it's kind of just at the fringe of viability, and that's kind of like what keeps it in the C tier for me. Um, like I don't know anything to add here.
It's a very respectable choice, mon. Because in and of itself, V create, Bolt Strike, Final Gambit, U turn is like you can probably trade even with this mon. Up until Gen 9, it was by far the highest HP stat of any Final Gambit user. So there is that niche, and V Create Bolt Strike do a lot of damage. And Victini actually has a really good special move pool with some weird moves like Searing Shot if you go for a calm mindset. But again, just if I'm going to use a setup fire type on the special side in Gen 5 onwards, it's probably going to be Volcarona. It's not weak to ground. So it's like Yeah, it's competition, but the move pool justifies the mon here in some cases, and it's definitely won a few games, especially in BW. It's definitely like a fringe mon that sees usage time again in BW more so than like the following generations, but it's still usable. Like even in
Yeah.
Gen 9 national decks, I have seen Bikini once or twice.
Yeah, it's like not bad. It has like its main thing is kind of just like the move pool is like very, very interesting. And, like it's kind of characteristic of a lot of mythicals that have like moves they really just shouldn't have. So in Victini's case, it has like fusion bolt, uh, bolt strike. I think it has like blue flare too.
Blue
Um,
Flare.
yeah,
This blue flare searing shot is an absurd move. It is an omniboost Z move in Generation 7.
yeah. A lot of the mythicals have like that Z celebrate thing. That we saw Meloetta used for a couple minutes ago. But yeah, this Pokemon's like not terrible. Like I think it's okay, but there's just a lot of these Pokemon are very good, and Victini's just not quite as up there. And so the last Pokemon I'm putting in C tier is like Skyman, I think. This Pokemon is like banned in like DPP, I think, but then like the round after that, it's just like not very good. It did have an infamous moment where it was banned from DOU during Gen 6. Shoutouts Arctic Blast. Um, but this Pokemon is generally like not that strong. It is very fast. It has like fast tailwind. It has Seed Flare with like an 80% chance to drop Spadef. It definitely like gets momentum, and I think it's like definitely like a little bit more usable than Victini and like a lot of the gens it's legal in. Because fast tailwind is
Really good in
nice
BW.
in some situations. It combos well with like other special attackers because you just get to click with Seed Flare and then like another move, and if you drop their Spadef, they're basically just dead. Um, but yeah, kind of it's just like again like kind of on the outer edge of like viability. And I think that like prevents it from being higher.
It gets a niche in BW for its typing being really good into parts of that metagame. Like Seed Flare can target most of Rain alongside Air Slash hitting Ludicolo, and it's like resistant to water while being immune to ground. So it's got that going for it in that generation. Kind of like how Victini's decent there. It's pretty decent in BW from everything I've seen, especially with its speed. It is absurdly fast for BW standards.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
A little bit slower than
dies to
Shadowball.
Icy Wind lol.
Incredible in older gens.
Dies to Icy Wind.
Okay. So moving on to the B tier, now we're getting into like mons that are like they're either like pretty decent in like a variety of gens, or like they're really powerful in like one gen, or like they're they're like have a really strong niche in one gen. Um, and so the first one of these is like I'm gonna say Darkrai, I think, because this Pokemon is like interesting, right? It has like very broken Dark Void move. Um, And usually, like Dark Void by itself is like banned, right? And then Darkrai is like, it's like not that great a mod. It does see like some usage in some formats. Um, I've seen some of it in like Gen 6. I know Shisters uses a fair amount there. But I've also seen it like in Gen 7 a fair amount. It's never like been. It's not like a super great Pokemon, but it does have like access to like Ice Beam. It's very fast, and it just kind of hits hard as like a special attacker. Um, but what really is like keeping this Pokemon in the B tier is it's actually banned in SV. Because in SV, like instead of Dark Void being banned, Darkrai got banned because of Dark Void, which is a whole separate issue. But basically, like you'd run like Sweet Scent Skyman next to Darkrai, or like Dipplin to like drop evasion, and then like your Dark Voids are hitting, you're just putting everything to sleep, and it was just like really not fun. Um, and I think like it's just like a little bit more broken than the guys down here. It's definitely like not super great in the generations it's used in, but it's like I've seen it more than the ones down here, because it's very fast and it like preys upon stuff like Landorus, right, with like fast ice beam, um, and just stuff like that. Okay, Pokemon, very stupid move.
Pokemon.
When it has the stupid move legal, it kind of just does really
Ro-
very very stupid things. Um, Moves that put both Pokemon to sleep are not okay. Thankfully, Metaletta is bad, so it doesn't get to do that very often. But yeah. Okay. And then above that, I have Keldeo. Now this Pokemon is like I'm putting it a little higher because I think like on its own merits, this Pokemon is better than Darkrai, which just kind of has one move. Keldeo is just like a fast water type.
Right.
And generations like 5 and 6, it's like pretty decent at just like hitting things pretty hard with like strong Life Orb boosted Hydro Pumps. Has a strong like signature move in Secret Sword. It's one of the best sources of fighting type damage in those tiers. Um, Certainly the best source of like special fighting type damage. Although I guess it's not even special because it hits on the physical side. But it's like the best special
It can
attacking
run
fighting
Aura
type.
Sphere.
Um, yeah, this Pokemon's just pretty good in XY. Later generations, it kind of just gets crowded out by other waters. It really doesn't like Feeny. Um, it's kind of an interesting Pokemon in Gen 9. I'll let Sister talk about that more in a second. But yeah, I think this Pokemon's pretty good. I really like it in XY. And if it gets like metagame presence there is strong enough and it's like decent enough in BW, it's like tier 4 or something. Um, to the point where I think it justifies being in B tier, like a little bit ahead of Darkrai, because Darkrai doesn't have any generation where it's like actually a staple. It's either just like banned like an SV or it's just like fringe. But Keldeo is like a very like solid like Pokemon in the metagame of XY, in my opinion.
Yeah, big solid tier 3 mon there. The first like really decently rated Pokemon on this list. Darkrai's banned in DPP, but we're not completely counting that. Darkrai has like a really good stat line, but Keldeo's got a really good typing with just enough speed to make it work. In SV, Keldeo has access to coaching as well as flip turn, among a few other things. So it could be a really interesting utility mon in that format, but its typing also allows it to wall a couple mons like Chin Pao and really mess with a lot of fire types. And it outspeeds both forms of Landorus, which is really big for it. It's not like a perfect mon. It's got some very unfortunate weaknesses to flying and grass stab because oh boy, Rillaboom is not fun to deal with in later gens with it. But against a lot of offensive threats, Keldeo's move pool and honestly decent bulk, like it's typing at its bulk, enable it to be like a good piece on teams that are trying to balance out their matchups a little bit. Because you can run a choice item, you can run Life Orb, you can run Citrus Berry and be like Icy Wind coaching support with a Pivot Mon that manages to outspeed Landorus. It's just like not completely favored to a bunch of other things in the metagame in SV, like Raging Bolt and Rillaboom and Tornadus being so strong.
Yeah, it's definitely like a interesting mod with like a good typing. Like water types are like not super common, at least good ones. And that's kind of like what Keldeo does best in the format it's good in. Just be a strong, especially attacking fast water type. Um, and yeah, that role's just pretty appreciated. Um, there are many replays of it in X while. I'll just find one of mine. Let's see. Oh, yeah, here's the pretty good
Shame
example
that its
of him.
move pool is
So
kind
yeah,
of
Keldeo
terrible
comes in,
in
like
Gen 5.
does a lot of damage with Hydro Pump, as it does. Ignore the baton pass. Also, like XY has Quick Guard, which is pretty valuable. It's another nice utility move it has. Can get momentum in some situations, like here. Um, I don't know.
It gets a
Not
lot
really
of
a lot more
mileage out
to
of
add.
Quick Guard owing to its speed, putting it above all the fake out users.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if it does anything else here, but yeah, it's just a pretty solid Pokemon. Okay, let me see. What did I have right above that?
You had Mega Diancie.
Okay, Deoxys
ABO.
Speed. This Pokemon has seen like a lot of like a resurgence like lately in like terms of like XY, and that's had kind of like translated into like other generations as well. This Pokemon is like very good at setting hazards. Like again, we talked about earlier with like Jirachi. Jirachi's access to rocks is kind of nice. Well, Deoxys Speed is just like the fastest Pokemon in the game up until like Regieleki gets added. In Gen 8. So it has like very fast, like almost unstoppable like rocks. It has like spikes and Natex, and SV as well. It has like fast taunt, which is nice in XY, and it can like pick off things and like with Ice Beam, Psycho Boost. Especially in XY, it combos really well with like Mega Kangaskhan. because Rock's chip is really nice for that for Kangaskhan, and it also helps deal with like Pokemon Kangaskhan doesn't like. Um, I digress, but this Pokemon is
Psycho
very
Boost,
good.
the fighting types.
Yeah,
Psycho Boost lets it do actual damage with its mediocre special attack stat, and the good coverage allows it to hit Landorus, like Ice Beam will hit Landorus, regardless of it being 95 special attack. And that applies to every gen that it's in.
yeah, this Pokemon's just pretty good. It's worth noting that like it wasn't really used up until like a little more than a year ago. We really started seeing usage in XY. And it kind of like has translated into other generations as well. Like in that Dex, which we're not like super considering here, but it's like worth like talking about a little bit. Like it pairs really well with like Chen Pao. You could probably also do that in SV, but like the stuff next to Chen Pao is not as broken in SV, so it doesn't. It's not quite as solid to just like build Chen Pao offense every time, or at least like dedicated Chen Pao offense. Like Chen Pao by itself is like really good, but
I
archetypes
know a
with like
couple of
Deoxys
SV
speed, I've not
players
really
like
seen much use in SV, but it's still like usable
I know
Pokemon. Fast Taunt is nice, and just like Ice Beam, the same things that make it good in XY. All right, so
I know a couple of people like Rat Packer have done Deoxys Speed Palfence and SV.
yeah, for
Although
sure.
that really peaked last year.
Yeah. Okay, so the next mon I have in the B tier is Mega Diancie. This Pokemon is I'm doing Mega Diancie and Diancie separately because they're really just like fundamentally completely different Pokemon. Mega Diancie is just very. It's one of the best wall breakers in like Gen 6 and 7. It's like the second best or third best Mega in XY, and then it's like the fourth or fifth or like third best Mega in like SM. It's like pretty good to be honest, but it is a Mega, so it kind of has that opportunity cost, and there are more broken Megas in both generations that kind of outclass it. But it is like one of the best sources of like rock type damage, really, because Diamond Storm is just a really broken move. So what this Pokemon gets to do, right, is it's not very bulky, but it gets to fire off like so many like Diamond Storms that like you have decent odds to like increase your defense, like to the point where like you actually can become like you can compensate for the fact you've lost like defense when you Mega Evolve. And so that like fast Diamond Storm is really powerful. Um, However, it's only really in two generations. It's very good in XY. It has like hidden power stuff to hit Lando. It has like it's one of the best like fairy type attackers in the tier as well, like with Fast Moon Blast. Um, but I'm not. I'm thinking of like putting it like at the top of B really here. I guess there's like one more mod I put here, but yeah, it's good, but it's like not quite at like the level of like being an A tier. Simply because I think it being a mega rule is really what holds it back, right? Because like you have to commit a lot to run it, but it is like very good. And I'd say it's definitely like the best one we've talked about so far. Diamond Sword is just that good of a move, and Moonblast is also broken because it's fairy type, so very good Pokemon. Also very fast. Gets the jump on like basically everything that's not scarfed. Um, except for like, or at least in XY. That's what makes it really good in XY. In SM, it has to contend with more, but it's still like a very good Pokemon. Um, okay, and the next one is Mega, or not Mega, Deoxys Attack. So this Pokemon, I wasn't entirely sure where to put it, but it is like a great attacker in like every tier it's legal in. It's a good attacker in BW, or at least it's all right enough. It pairs like nicely with like Bisharp and XY, so it's good in that here as well. It's something you have to like really respect in XY. And then it actually got banned in SV because it got access to expanding force. Um, and it's like I think it's okay-ish in SM. Like I've seen some like size spam teams with it just clicking Psycho Boost and nuking things. It's just a very powerful attacker. Like it's not hard to really see what it does. It has access to like basically every like attacking move it could want. Superpower Ice Beam, Extreme Speed in XY, Psycho Boost, Expanding Force in SV, and other stuff too. Like you could even like click rocks with this, although you don't really see that because you just want to be attacking. But
You know, you just
it's a
jump
very good Pokemon.
SV to Hickle Dingo.
Yeah. Um, I think what makes it really nice in XY especially is just extreme speed is very good in that tier. Um, and so I think this Pokemon is just like a really for I'm ranking it like here because it's just good in like every tier it's legal in. Like it's never bad. It's always like at least like tier 4 or tier 3 because it's just like one of the best like pure attacking Pokemon you can get. Although it is like very frail, obviously, it gets picked off by basically anything. Um, and like, yeah, I don't know, but it is also banned uh in everything in 4 and 3 because it'd just be like way too much if it was legal in those formats. Because everything else is just so much weaker. Um, but yeah, good Pokemon, but not very fun to play against when it has expanding force. Gladly banned that. Let's see.
It actually almost got banned in SM, I think. It was before my time, but people thought its trading ability or ability to trade was just way too good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so now we're on to like the really good stuff. That's like very, very viable across like basically every generation these Pokemon are legal in. So the first one of which is Deancey. Now this is like a game-changing Pokemon from BGC. This is like the best Trick Room setter, really. Or at least maybe not the best, but like one of the best because it has like a really unique typing compared to most Trick Room setters, and also it gets to do like funny stuff with like Diamond Storm after it sets Trick Room. Like a lot of Trick Room setters, especially in DOU, like you set Trick Room and then you do what? Like you just click like recover, try to keep yourself alive, chip things with Ice Beam. No, DNC has Diamond Storm. Again, we talked about how broken that Pokemon or that move is on Mega DNC, but with DNC it's even crazier because like if you get like a boost from Diamond Storm with this Pokemon, you basically become like unkillable on this physical side. That's how high its defense is. You often see it on like weakness policy and some of the gens. If it gets like a boost, it's like the game's kind of like really tough to win from there. Um, and it's just a nice fairy type. Like, look, Moonblast too, right? It also has Body Press, so it can combo with Diamond Storm in generations like 8 and 9. Just a great Pokemon. This Pokemon's never bad. You always have to respect it, or else like if you don't load mons that can like hit this thing super effectively on the special side, you are going to struggle against it because no physical attacker is really an 100% check to this Pokemon because uh, it just boosts its defense and it gets really scary to take care of under Trick Room. So yeah, this Pokemon is excellent. But it's not quite as like doesn't have as much for utility as the Pokemon that we're going to talk about that are in A tier as well. Because like it's pretty much limited to Trick Room. You can't really run it without like running at least like some form of Trick Room, and that kind of limits it. But yeah, very very it's clearly a step above everything else we've talked about so far, and that's why it's in the A tier. So, anything to add, Chister?
Oh, not really.
There. Okay. So
Think
after this,
Meteor Beam and
now
SV.
we're going to talk about Zeraora. So this Pokemon, this is better in Sin, basically. Debatable, but this is like the fastest fake out clicker in the entire game. Another like game changing Pokemon from BGC. Really, like this Pokemon is just excellent at clicking fake out. Has Snarl as well. Fast Snarl is appreciated. It can do like all right damage, but usually you're just leaning into its support. In SM, it runs like a really bulky AV set with like Volt Switch, Pivoting, Fake Out, Snarl. Um, and it's just very fast, and it has the ability to just like really like support your team with Snarl. Make space special attack moves like really really sad because they don't do any damage. Like, it does have like the tendency to be like a little bit brutal, but the Pokemon is very very good. In SM and in SS, it gets access to coaching, like one of the best coaching clickers because it's just fast and it can give like basically any Pokemon that's a physical attacker or even like for the special attackers like really appreciate the boost. And coaching is just a really powerful move, and this is like the best clicker of it in the game. Um, but really, it's just a great fake out Pokemon, and one of like just really just excellent all around. Um, but it's also has only been legal for like 2 generations, which does hold it back compared to like Pokemon we're going to talk about from here on out, right? Because Zeraora is like hasn't been around as much, but it's been pretty good. Um, it's like it's not as good in Gen 8 as it is in Gen 7, but it's still like a very very good Pokemon. Um, and I think like it's how good it is in Gen 7
I
compared to and Gen 8 makes it A tier for me. And it just has a fake out mod. It just fits on so many teams. Okay. So next up, we have Mew. This is the last of our A tiers. And this Pokemon obviously gets every move in the
And
game.
this,
Eh, What's up?
I would even call this a debatable A tier
Yeah,
because
it really
it
could
got
be S
multiple
tier.
generations where it's like tier one.
Yeah, this Pokemon has just been around for a really long time. And I'm only not putting it in S tier because there are some generations where it's less good. It's not as good in like Gen 5 or 7. It's like pretty okay in 6, but I don't personally like it very much there. Um, but in like Gen 8, Gen 4, like it's like tier 1. It's excellent utility, access to everything. What really makes this Pokemon nice, up until Gen 9, where it lost Fake Out, is Fake Out because combining Fake Out with like basically anything else is like great roll compression. And since Mew learns so many like supporting moves, like it's the only Pokemon, or like at least far and away the best Pokemon that combos Fake Out with like other stuff. Um, likes to click Wisp,
Take
likes to
out
click
Pollen
Snarl,
Puff.
likes to click Tailwind. Also has Pollen Puff. Also has Rocks. Um, in Gen 8, you see like sometimes Hazard stacking with it. Sometimes you see like Cosmic Power set up with it. Like it can basically do anything. This Pokemon is just very, 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 very flexible. The most flexible Pokemon really ever. Um, and it's just great. But the thing is, it just struggles in some generations because the power level's just high. And like if like the metagame's like really offensive, this Pokemon kind of struggles because it gets kind of like knocked out or chipped, and like it can't click as many of its supporting moves as it would like to. And it doesn't do quite enough damage to really justify like sticking it around on like a lot of teams. But definitely like really valuable. But in SV, it lost Fake Out, and that was a really serious nerf to it as well. Um, Similar to Zero Aura, also has coaching. It's one of the better clickers of coaching in the game, but it's not quite enough to bump it up to S tier IMO. What are your thoughts on this, Shifter?
Losing Fake Out in SV basically took Mew from the best Pokemon in DOU to a tier 4 Mon that's the best Pokemon in DUU. So it's
Yeah,
like it's
literally,
still around in SV. It's still like it's. I argue it's more viable in SV than like Gen 7 even because it's still doing things. It's still compressing Fake Out, Pollen Puff, Wisp, Snarl, Tailwind, clicking Ice Beam onto Landorus. It's still around. So even
yeah,
losing its best tool, it's a good Pokemon.
for sure. Okay, that's kind of the A tier. These Pokemon are just very good. However, the last two Pokemon we're going to talk about are basically just like some of the best Pokemon in DOU history. So the first one is Volcanion. This Pokemon was released like right at the end of XY, like the last year. Um, and like I mentioned earlier, this Pokemon is like really significant for its typing. The only fire water type in the game has access to like even more broken Scald than Steam Eruption, 110 base power, 30% burn, and that move is just broken. And it's like the best Pokemon in XY DOU. It's just so good at just taking damage trades really, really well. It's like an assault vest set. It can also run like goggles as well, but it just it's very, very good. Access to just fire, water coverage, is nice. You can click Earth Power for opposing Volcania. This Pokemon is just great. In SM, it's like a little bit less powerful because there are other water types, but it is like a good Pokemon. It has access to like all the like the really stupid super berries in SM. So I think it often wins like Wiki Berry, etc., etc. But it's a good Pokemon in SM. Great Pokemon in Gen 8 as well because it's just it's just very bulky. One of the best like historically in like basically any DOU format. This Pokemon's like high defense makes it like really, really valuable when there's like strong physical attackers in the format because it can either just click Wisp or it can just click Steam Eruption and like eventually get a burn. And that's just really, really valuable. So in like Gen 8, it's like a good mod into like Shifu. It's a good mod into Rillaboom. Because it can just like Wisp it or whatever. You also see like a substitute set sometimes. Um, because Pokemon, it's like one thing it can't do is like setup and all because it doesn't have access to any moves like that. But that's a good thing because if it did, it would be like extremely broken. Just great staying power, great stats. Um, Immunity to water type moves from its ability is also appreciated because it could beat like pretty much every other water type 1v1 in some way. It has also access to like lots of great like other like moves in its move pool that can help trade better, like Sludge Bomb, Earth Power, like the various hidden powers. You can run like single target like fire type move like Overheat. Um, but yeah, it's very good. There's like no generation where this Pokemon is like below like tier 4. Um, and SV I think is its lowest
And
at
it's
like
only
tier
tier
4.
4.
Um, but it's just a very good
And it's only
Pokemon.
tier 4 in SV because the metagame is a mess.
This is true.
It's got to deal with Landorus and SV.
Yeah, especially Landorus. But it's just a very good Pokemon. AV is just a really nice item for it too because like just it has like a little bit lower like special defense stat, but like with AV it just becomes like obscenely bulky on both sides. Very difficult to remove. However, Pokemon I'm gonna put at number one is Genesect. Now this Pokemon is very good for many reasons, but chief among them is just download is a very great ability to have on like a very strong Pokemon, and it has just some of the best like set flexibility of any Pokemon in DOU history in all generations. You can run like Choice Band Extreme Speed. Extreme Speed is just a really great move. Um, it loves clicking that. If it gets a download boost, it can kind of just like hit things so hard with V-Speed, like pretty much everything just gets 2-hit KO'd by it as long as it doesn't resist it. Um, it has like it can be like Scarf with like fast U-turn. Just steel coverage is nice in some formats, right? You can just like hit Diancie and other fairy types. In Gen 7, it runs like
It can be
Scarf Dump Shot
mixed.
to like hit like the Tapus. Um, and also like run like an AV set. We've seen that at some points. And Gen 8 can also run like Shift Gear plus like Leech Life plus like various other moves. This Pokemon can basically do anything. Has access to like a whole bunch of coverage moves, like ice moves, like fire moves, like electric. It just has everything. Um, just an
Couple
excellent Pokemon. And
demons.
its lowest gen in terms of viability, it's like tier 3. And every other generation, it's tier 2. And then in that dex, we had to ban it because it clicked E-Speed next to Chanpao and it was like obscene. This Pokemon is just great. It's just Bug Steel is also just an excellent typing. There's just not much else to say, in my opinion.
The only thing that keeps Genesect from being DOU level is the fact that it's using non-stab moves. If it was using stab coverage to do the things that it does, it would be banned. And look what happened in that dex.
Yep.
Avit Terra immediately banned.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they gave it a insanely good partner in Champao. So those ranges it missed before, it doesn't miss those anymore.
I think a +1 choice band Terra normal E-speed from Genesect would KO Volcanion.
hold on. Let's
Yeah.
that. I'm pretty sure
Broken.
it does because I remember like
Broken can't
I have a very
end them.
distinct memory of Genesect Oko and my Tapu Fini from full. Jolly. Choice Band, Tapu Fini, or no, not Tapu Fini, Volcanion.
Oh, goody goody.
We're just gonna assume +1 with Tau on the field. Yeah. +1,
Yeah,
252 attack,
it can
choice
KO.
band, Terra normal, Sword of Ruin, 87% to 100%. And I think you'd probably just be adamant, honestly, if this was around today. Yeah, it just kills everything. Like, let's look at Tapu Fini. Let's see. Yeah, that's +2. So,
This is why it got banned.
yeah,
But then
no,
it KOs everything anyways with super effective coverage in every other gen, and the only thing that stops it from running over tiers is it getting choice locked most of the time.
it would be obscenely broken in like any format with Terra because you can also do stuff with like Clear Amulet now. Like I'm sure that like makes like the setup set even more broken. Um, and Terra for that
Oh
as well is
god.
just really dumb. Um, this Pokemon's just very, very good. Um, it's up there with Volcanion. Like these two are just DOU staples, and honestly, Mew could be up here too. But yeah.
I'll
Anyways,
give it a shout out for being the one mythical on this list that doesn't care at all about its signature move.
That's
It is
true.
good for literally every other move in its move pool. I just
Yeah.
think that's funny.
Yeah, Genesec's gimmick is like completely unused at all because it requires an item slot, and giving that up
Yeah,
for like
like
one
techno,
coverage move is just not good. Um, but
it's
despite
like
that,
better than
it's still
power,
broken.
but worse than a dedicated item. Oops, sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thought it would just be an interesting video to just like kind of like rank these just like based on like all time usage and viability across all gens. But yeah, see you next time.